You certainly are. It's all good, and thanks for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk hoops with like-minded people and spread the word being Australian basketball. I wish I did, but no, no, I haven't. I haven't even got my hot chocolate. Well, I don't know if many people are missing out on Ben Simmons. Let's put it that way. I think Ben Simmons is getting plenty of attention right now, and that's not just attention in Australia. He's getting plenty of it over in the US, and is certainly being hyped up as being the likely number one NBA draft pick next year. But he's not alone. There's a lot of other Aussies that are really doing exceptionally well in the Division One college ranks over in the States as well, and happy to talk more about some of those guys as well. Look, you really want to be in a major conference. You want to be in the ACC, the Big East, the Big Ten, the Big 12, even the Pac 12. They're generally the conferences where you get players coming from. SEC, your Kentuckies, you're talking these big programs, and they're the ones that generally most of the NBA talent comes from. That's where the big names go to in the US. That's where most of the first rounders come from in the NBA draft. So that's really where you want to be. And I guess if you've looked traditionally over the years where the Australians have been, they've been in the low level programs or the mid majors. So your mid majors being your St. Mary's, and probably one of the most famous mid majors being the likes of Butler or Gonzaga, as an example. We've certainly heard plenty of those uh, names come about in the NBA draft in the past. So traditionally, we've had the likes of Matthew Dellavedova, Patty Mills. We all know they've come from St. Mary's, done really well to get to the NBA. But I won't call it easier path, but the more traditional path is through your major conferences, major teams, and that's where you've got the likes of Ben Simmons at the moment. Look, it's not easy, and I think perception is everything. Major difference between here in Australia and the US is the Australian system is very much about team oriented basketball. It's not about me. When you go over to the States, the biggest culture shock that a lot of our players experience is the me culture. There's a player on the team, or there's a few players on the team, and they don't give it up. They don't give the rock up, or they don't buy into that team ethos because they're the gun. They've always been hyped up as being the best player, and they play that way. So there's a lack of that team orientation from some of those players, and that's one of the reasons why the likes of Paddy Mills, Joe Ingles, Andrew Bogut, and of course Matthew Dellavedova are so highly valued by these NBA teams. They've really opened the eyes to what they bring. It's not just what they bring on the court, the team first attitude. They sacrifice. Look at Bogut, what he's done. He's an NBA number one draft pick. Yes, injuries have hampered him, but he's still got the talent. You can see what he can do when he gets an opportunity, but he's playing a role. Mm, yeah. Exactly. And I guess if you look at Ben Simmons now, as much as he's got so many people that are hyping him up and building him up, he's had a few detractors too. There was a game he gave up the potential match winning shot. And he gave it up. He did the team first thing, and people are saying, "But you're the stud on the team. You should be the one taking the shot." But if you have a look at the replay, he made the best possible decision. There was a guy in a better position than him. It was wide open. He made the pass. That's him, team first. Whereas a lot of the other American raised and trained players would have taken the shot. Win or lose, they're the stud, and that's how it is. So, if you're coming back to how do you get there? Look, there's a number of different ways to get there. Particularly the high level Australian talent. We hear about the Australian Institute of Sport, now known as the Basketball Australia Centre of Excellence, playing on the Australian junior teams. You're going to be getting more exposure. So we're talking about 10 or 12 guys here, now 16 at the AIS, I think it is, that are getting that sort of look in, and even then you're looking at the absolute top tier talent that have traditionally been looked at, and they're still only ending up in mid-major programs. So over the years, we're building up that reputation of having good talent, team first players, and now it's being recognised as being highly valuable. You look at the success of St Mary's. When they had all the Australians like Paddy Mills and Delhi, and they were doing really good things with other Australian role players. They went to the Sweet 16. People are like, oh, maybe there's something in it. And now you're seeing a lot of other teams replicate that. You got your Boise States, you got your Hartfords, your Eastern Washingtons, your Albany. And now you've even got major programs such as Louisville, who have got two Aussies on their roster this season, and both started the season as starters. Exactly. Exactly right, and we haven't seen it for a long time. He's doing things no one's seen done in college basketball for more than 20 years. The comparisons are being done just at LSU as an example. Some of the numbers he's put up being compared to Shaquille O'Neal. As an example, one of the greatest LSU players of all time, one of the greatest NBA players of all time. So he's really, people are comparing him to LeBron and Magic Johnson. Look, Ben Simmons is going to be Ben Simmons, and I think he's really going to create, a new type of player that maybe the NBA hasn't seen. There's elements of LeBron, there's elements of Magic, but I think he's really going to be Ben Simmons, and I think that whole attitude and what you see from him is what you're going to get. And it's that team ethos. I don't think he'll move away from being who he is and true to himself. And I think that's a good thing. Will he always be compared to others? Of course he will. He's putting up serious numbers. He's a talent. But how good is he going to be? We won't actually know until he gets to the NBA, but he's doing some pretty special things right now. SEC Player of the Week with his 43-point outing, and doing things that no one hasn't seen for a long time. Let's put it that way. Yeah, Oh, look, exactly right. And I think if you look at him and you look at his stats, you're going, well, here's a guy that's running the point and goes down and posts his player, but really he's probably playing more as a point guard. So I'm going to compare him to a point guard right now, and a lot of people will go, but he's 6'10", he can post and he gets rebounds. Well, he handles the ball. He brings the ball up the court, he handles it, and the offense starts with him just about every time. And he's got racking up 6 assists a game. Now he's doing better than three-quarters of the point guards in NCAA basketball. And what is there, 360 odd teams, I think. So he's doing better than three-quarters of the point guards right there. And I bet you there's no other point guard averaging 15 rebounds a game. Yeah, yeah, it's good. That's a very good sign because one of the other detractors on him is his inability to hit a shot, or in fact, his reluctance to take an outside shot altogether right now. And I think that just displays he's got absolutely no confidence in his jump shot at the moment. But if you look at him, you mentioned the free throw shooting. To me, that's the indicator that he's going to be able to shoot. If you look at what LeBron was doing at a similar age, LeBron wasn't shooting outside either, and everyone said he couldn't shoot, but he'll have to work on it. He did, and has become a very, very effective jump shooter. Oh, he can shoot. He can shoot. Look, is he going to be a Steph Curry like player? I don't think anyone is. So let's don't go there. But certainly he can be a shooter. There's nothing wrong with his action. It doesn't look broken. He can hit free throws. To me, it's a confidence thing. Having said that, how good is he? He doesn't need to rely on it at all at the moment. Mm. Yep. Yeah, look, it's really good, and I think that the point that you're making there, in particular around his passing, he's averaging 6 assists a game, and if you actually watched his game, some of the open shots that his teammates have been missing, he could be actually nearly 10 assists a game. Now, it's one of those he could have, maybe, yeah, yeah, it is, but his teammates are not hitting shots. You just have to look at the team shooting percentages and seeing the pieces that are around him. Antonio Blakeney is probably the only guy giving him support on the team at the moment, and he's another potential first round NBA draft pick. Apart from that, he's really not getting a lot of support on that team. And I think he's really looking forward to Keith Hornsby coming back because Keith Hornsby, starting shooting guard, is a lights out knockdown shooter. And with some of his kick outs, that he's going to absolutely love playing with Ben Simmons, but he hasn't even hit the court this season yet. Yeah. Yeah, look, North Florida are not a strong team, so let's get that out of the way. They're not a great team. But if you look at the final scoreline, there wasn't a great difference between the two. And what you see in college basketball sometimes is some teams will run with three or four guards and just one forward. So it really depends on the cattle that they've got as well. So you'll find a lot of the major programs, they'll have the cattle. They'll have the big guys, the shooting guards, the point guards, and they'll have a very well-rounded team. And then you've got some other programs. They'll either, there's some that'll run with three forwards and two guards. Some will run a four-guard rotation with one big guy, and the big guy might only be 6'8". So they're playing small ball. So you really get massive variances between some of the programs. So yes, was it David and Goliath? Well, not quite, because I actually wouldn't consider LSU a Goliath. But with Simmons on their team, they're a very dangerous team, particularly when he's got Antonio Blakeney there with him as well. So don't want to take LSU lightly, but right now they're not a top 25 team. They were ranked in the top 25 going into the season and for the first few weeks, but then they dropped 3 in a row and were dropped out of the rankings altogether. So have they got work to do? Most certainly. Is Simmons going to be the star? Yes. And is he going to go away? I can't see Simmons not having an impact in every game he plays in college basketball. I personally believe in what I've seen so far. He's an NBA ready player right now. Yeah. Oh no, that's fine. And look, there was one game where he didn't score a lot of points, but you should see his rebounds and assists. He got a double double without hitting 10 points. Yeah. Yeah. Now the only thing he probably hasn't done this season is get a triple double. I think that's going to happen. I think he'll at least get one this year. And he's already gone very close to getting the 5 by 5. So that's at least 5 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and five in each category basically. And there's not too many people that have done that in the history of basketball. It will be. Yeah, Dave Simmons, Melbourne Tigers. Yes, most certainly. Saw him play plenty of times. Yeah. Yeah, and then hang on, the era. Yeah, it was Dave Colbert for a while, and Leonard Copeland will have come in as well at one stage. So you would have had Copes there as well. The likes of Warwick Giddy and all those guys. Ray Gordon, going back, and Bradkey, Mark Bradkey. Can't forget him. Yeah, 1993 would have hurt, wouldn't it? If he's listening. Yep. Oh well, look at the Lakers. Come on. Now, one of the things we'll talk about with Simmons and the Lakers is the purple and gold. He wore that at Montverde Academy, being his high school US team for 3 years, um, and he was wearing that at LSU now. So people are saying, well, Lakers, it makes sense, purple and gold. Oh, they are. They lost to Philly. Yeah, that's right. I think both teams were trying to lose. No, you can't. No, no, you're right, and they're not. So the Lakers, would they be a great fit for Ben Simmons? I really think they probably are. Would it be good for basketball in Australia too? One of the highest profile teams in the NBA, one of the highest profile players in college basketball going around right now, being touted as the next LeBron James or the next Magic Johnson or something in between. It fits. It fits. And the style of game, he's an up and down player. He's a 6'10" point guard. The last time we saw someone like that was Magic Johnson at 6'9". And there's that whole Showtime aspect. He's an up and down, above the rim player. It fits, and I think it would be great for basketball in Australia in particular if he went to a high profile program. The other one that I guess the other high profile program that would be a good fit for that kind of situation, probably a better situation to move to, would be the Celtics. Actually, the Boston Celtics. Yeah, yeah, that's all right. But it would be a good fit. They've got a great young coach, knows what he's doing, really putting some good pieces together and building a good culture back at the Celtics after it sort of disintegrated for a while. And that would be a great fit. And of course, we mentioned Philly before, like just being the absolute worst team in the NBA at the moment. But there is an Australian connection there with Brett Brown. And coming back to your Dave Simmons thing, Brett Brown was an assistant coach on the Melbourne Tigers when Dave Simmons was playing. So there is a connection. So there is a connection there. Now they've just got to get the balls to drop. That's right, David Patrick. David Patrick's his godfather. So he was involved with the Melbourne Tigers for a few years and became really good mates with Dave Simmons. And yeah, godfather. And yeah, there's no doubting. And Ben Simmons has said this himself. If he wasn't there at LSU, we probably wouldn't be at LSU. Yeah. We'll leave the Fremantle Dockers right there, and we'll leave Hawthorn aside too because I'm not fans of either. But yeah, well, that's all right. Denver. Yeah, yeah. Well, there is the connection with LSU being down there, and the Hornets could be a nice fit, yeah, given he's down there already. So, who knows? I guess this is one of those things we can all speculate leading up to the draft. But personally, I think for the best situation for him to go to right now is the Celtics, and I think the best dollar earning value, honestly, is probably the Lakers. I think there's only one guy that's Scal Labissiere. He's the only guy that's going to top him. Look, they are they're vying for the number one spot at the moment. I think the Simmons hype's got him the number one spot. I think Simmons has been able to demonstrate his best is likely to be better than Scal Labissiere, and the fact that Ben Simmons doesn't have a jump shot yet. It's that whole wow. If we had a jump shot to that, he's the complete package. So the upside that we often hear from scouts and we hear in the media about NBA potential players is Ben Simmons has upside still. We still haven't seen the best of Ben Simmons. That's the scary thing about it. We have not seen the best of him. Yeah, yeah, he is, and we come back to that original question. How do you get that exposure? What's the pathway to get to the NBA? What's the best way to get there? And we talked about the major programs. You talk about the pathway Ben Simmons has taken. He went to the US high school route. 3 years of US high school. That's where the hype starts. That's where the exposure starts. That's where start building that name and reputation. The high school programs are known, and he went to one of he was a national champion 3 years in a row, like at high school. Yeah, no, that's all right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for Australians though, and I guess the exposure that they get, and I'll use another example of Isaac Humphries. Isaac Humphries, 7 footer, big guy, had 40 odd points in a FIBA World Championship event to break the scoring record for a single game. This guy's a genuine talent. He went the US high school route, did well, and where is he playing now? He's playing at Kentucky. Kentucky. When do you hear of an Australian playing at Kentucky? This is just madness. So, we're going to see Simmons and Humphreys go head to head in a game this year because they're both in the SEC. Yeah, get excited. You got Louisville. Louisville's got Mango Mathiang starting. Well, he started a few games this year. I mentioned earlier he's starting with a freshman there, Deng Adel, another Melburnian and of Sudanese heritage. They got two of them there, at Louisville that won a national championship just a few years ago. Um, yeah. Yeah, most certainly. And then you've got another guy like Anthony Drmic as well, playing at Boise State. Now, look, he's a rank outsider, to be honest with you. He's a fifth year senior. He basically sat out all of last year due to injury. So he was able to get a medical red shirt to return. So that just means he gets an exemption to come back for a fifth year of college. But he's having an up and down season. He hasn't played basketball for a year, and he's been recovering from injuries. But he's had a few 20-point games already. He's an outside shot. Realistically, I'd probably like to see him go more the Matthew Dellavedova route if it gets to that. And then you got another guy like Venky Jois, again, another guy from Melbourne, senior forward who had an amazing junior year last year. He had back-to-back 38-point games. He had a massive stat line in an upset win at Indiana in Assembly Hall. We're talking big performances here, and whilst some of his stats down, he's had a little niggling injury. He's a rank outsider for the second round of the NBA draft as well. So, and that's for this draft coming up. Then you got the drafts coming, in future years to come. You got another guy, 7-footer, that's trying to play like a point guard, not as fluid as Ben Simmons, is Thon Maker, and he's another Sudanese Aussie as well. Yeah, he's gone. Yeah, he's gone to Canada to play his last year of high school basketball. There was talk that he might reclassify and actually head to college this season. That hasn't been the case. So he's in Canada. He's going to see it out. And we mentioned Isaac Humphries before. He actually did reclassify, and he's at Kentucky as a 17-year-old. Yeah, yeah. He's really passionate player, and he does a bit of everything. He plays above his height. He often has to take on the team's larger players. He's 6'8". He's built really strong. He can play above the rim. He's sort of your point forward as well. He's very good at handling the ball and finding open players. So he's a good distributor. So an all-round type player. But again, he's a chance. If he's not, I definitely see him going to Europe and having a really long and successful career. And he may well do something like what Aaron Baines did. Went to Europe for a few years, established himself, and then even headed back to the to make it good in the NBA and get that nice big fat contract. Yeah, we can think about closing out the pod, but I guess over the next couple of years, the guys at Louisville, Mango Mathiang is an outside chance at making the NBA. He's got another year to go of college, so he gets to return the following season. You got Deng Adel, who's already a starter. He's out injured at the moment, but he started his freshman year on the starting roster at Louisville at a perennial Sweet 16 team, if not, Final Four or national champ. So, there's these guys. There's Isaac Humphries. There's Thon Maker coming through. There's just so much talent coming through the system at the moment in Australia, and more of these guys are getting on the bigger programs. And I think that's just the profile we've established over the years, the success that guys like Delhi, the guys like Paddy have had from a mid-major. Now the major programs are going, there's something to this. Maybe we want to tap into it. And again, with some of these guys going the high school route in the US as well, getting bigger exposure, and they're realizing these guys are really talented, they're getting picked up by some of the major programs. So, for example, I reckon if a guy like Venky Jois and Anthony Drmic, these guys, if some of them had gone the high school route, I actually think there's every chance they would have been on a major program rather than some of the mid-major programs are on at the moment. But you know, you can't turn back the clock, and it's one of those things where I think the college game, in line with what the NBA is doing, is embracing international. Hey, there is talent out there. I think that's just falling into line with that way of thinking, and given the success of Australians in college basketball in particular, and with likes of St. Mary's as an example, with New Mexico, we had Cameron Bairstow and Hugh Greenwood as an example, and New Mexico, and these teams, Albany, Peter Hawley's buzzer beater last year, to get Albany into the NCAA tournament for the third straight year. Yeah, and then next minute, you've got Peter Hooley on Sports Center. You've got him being interviewed by everyone. That doesn't happen to an Aussie every day. So, let alone a guy in college that isn't even a pro. That's just not heard of. So that helps build the profile. The fact that guys like Bogut, Delhi, Baines, half of these guys that I've just mentioned are NBA champions as well. You go back, Longley was a role player. If you go all the way back to the Bulls, Australians are good as team players, and I think we're showing that success on the world stage. I wouldn't say he inspires me to shoot around, but Mo Williams is a chucker, I reckon. Him and Brandon Jennings, those guys. Yeah, Brandon Jennings just stuck into my head right then as I actually thought about it. But those two guys, I just think, you know, that they just got no conscience whatsoever, and they keep chucking it even when they're not going anywhere near it. Always a pleasure and happy to talk again. Thanks for having me.